Is this thing on? Okay. Welcome to Boom Children's Ministries, and today we are going to talk about effective puppet ministry. Yay! But first, the intro. Yes, hello, and welcome to Boom Children's Ministries. And as my friend Red the Puppet just said, today we are going to talk about effective puppet ministry. And puppet ministry is something that I am deeply passionate about. I know that sounds really weird, but I am. I started puppet ministry back when I was in a young high school. I was 13, 14 years old. So junior high, and I've used puppets ever since to work in children's ministry. My children's pastor, when I was a kid, effectively used puppets, and there was a gentleman in my church who he made puppets. He built them himself. He had a workshop. He made some quality good puppets. And so I've been surrounded by puppets ever since I was really young, and I see how they work. Now, a while back, and I hate throwing people under the bus, and I'm not going to say any names because they might be watching this right now. And if you are watching this, you should know better, and you're going to know better by now. But a while back, I was talking with a group of youth pastors, pastors who work primarily with teenagers, and we were talking about a junior camp, a camp for elementary age children. And I mentioned how we should get puppets involved and how I could write some puppet skits and things like that. And those youth pastors, again, I emphasize that they primarily work with teenagers. Those youth pastors, they kind of scowled and they looked at me and they said, "This is not the 90s. Puppets don't work with kids anymore." Well, I didn't quite know what to say, other than that's absolutely silly. That's ridiculous. Puppets absolutely still work with children. And I still use puppets. In fact, a few months ago, we had our vacation Bible school here at our church, and I incorporated a puppet skit into the rally up in the auditorium. Every day we had our main puppet named Happy. She was looking for the missing jewel of Kanua. Turns people into platypuses. Yes. And I've asked many children, what was your favorite part of Vacation Bible School? And the majority of answers are the puppet show. The puppet show is their favorite part. Kids still love puppets. And the truth is, we sell our children short when we treat our children like they're teenagers. Don't let children grow up too quickly. The world is in such a hurry to get your kids to grow up. And the truth is, there are sinister reasons for that. Don't let your kids grow up too quick. Let them still enjoy things. Let them still be in awe of things. Now, whenever I have, I'm going to bring him back up here because this is Red. His name is Red. And he thinks he's Red as well. He has an identity crisis. He thinks he's Red. I am Red. See, I'm not a good ventriloquist. I don't know how to do ventriloquism, okay? So if you see me moving my mouth while he moves his mouth, well, we're both good at talking at the same time. Jinx. Personal jinx. Anyway, just don't worry about it. I'm not a ventriloquist. In fact, whenever we do puppet skits, we use a stage. In fact, I don't have the blueprints with me right now, but once I do, I'm going to have them available in my upcoming book, so that you can create your own stage. And what I do is, oh, by the way, I have a book coming out soon, on Boom Children's Ministries, making your children's ministry boom instead of fizzle. But anyway, so what I do with my puppet stage is, my puppet stage is not a PVC pipe where you stick your puppet up and you're hiding underneath it, you know. My puppet stage is, I'm sitting up like this and the puppet's right in front of me, and I have a scrim in front between me and the puppet so that I can actually see my audience while I am performing, so that Red can look down and say, "Hey, you in the red shirt," instead of staring off into the distance, not knowing what's going on, right? Anyway, so puppet ministry can still work, but it needs to be done effectively, right? Just like with any tool, there are wrong ways to use a tool and there are right ways to use a tool. And here's the problem. If you're trying to use a hammer to screw in a screw, it ain't gonna work, right? That doesn't mean that a hammer is ineffective or that it's a bad tool. It's just that you're trying to use that tool in a wrong way. So I have seen a lot of people use puppet ministry and really not really accomplishing what they were wanting to accomplish. So I'm going to give you 3 tips for effective children's ministry, all right? Number 1, engage with your audience. All right, let me say that again. Number 1, engage with your audience. So as I said, I have a puppet stage where I am standing up, right? And the stage is it's like the size of a door, right? And there is a fabric scrim between me and the puppet. That way, I can look at who I'm talking to, right? So if the Sunday school teacher is the other speaker, most of my puppet skits involve the puppet talking to the Sunday school teacher or the children's church teacher, right? So my puppet is looking at me while I'm talking to him. He's able to see me. He's able to see my actions because there's an actual script there. The puppeteer, believe it or not, there's someone's arm right there. There is a puppeteer who can actually see me as I, the Sunday school class teacher, am walking around, engaging. And then on top of that, if the teacher says, "Hey, Billy, say something to the puppet," Red will be able to look down and say, "Oh, hi, Billy, how are you? I really like that red shirt you're wearing today," or "That's a really sharp-looking bow tie you got wearing there." I don't do this much often. It's kind of strange, but I know sometimes you'll get some characters. I remember Mr. Monkey was the one I grew up with. And Mr. Monkey, he'd flirt with all the little girls, But, engage with your audience. I wouldn't really encourage. Now, I know Mr. Monkey was actually the children's pastor's wife. Don't tell anyone that. Don't tell anyone that. So that makes it just a little bit different. But either way, engage with your audience. The kids need to know that Red sees them, that Red is aware that they are there. I've seen a lot of puppet shows where the puppet is, "Hello, boys and girls, how are you doing today?" Staring off into the distance. No, that's not how people talk, right? If someone's talking, they're not looking up and, kind of staring off into the distance. That's not how it works. Have the puppet engaging with the kids. Have the puppet engaging with the kids in the audience, and have the puppet engaging with the class teacher himself, right? Yeah, right. All right, so that's number 1. Engage with the audience. Number 2, your puppet show should always be relevant to your lesson, okay? So if I'm teaching today on David and Goliath, right? So the main spiritual lesson about about the story of David and Goliath is going to be, in this situation, having faith in God. I can't have the puppet show. I can't have the puppet coming up and saying, "Oh, I'm struggling with lying. Please help me about this whole lying thing." Because lying and David and Goliath, I don't think those two things have anything in common. I don't think there's any problem with lying in the story of David and Goliath. I mean, I've read it enough times. I think I would know. No, there's nothing, right? You want for your puppet show to underscore what you are going to be talking about in your actual lesson. In fact, what you want to do with your puppet show is more than underscore it. You want your puppet show to, in fact, talk about the same thing you're going to talk about in your actual lesson, but kind of veer off just a little bit more, right? So what I mean by this is, your lesson is going to be on faith, right? Well, maybe what you need to do with your puppet show is have your puppet ask, well, what is faith? Right? So that way, once you get to the actual lesson, all you have to do to build the groundwork for what is faith is say, now remember when we were talking to Red earlier, we said that faith is ... That way, you have already taught them the lesson of what faith is. Now, with the story of David and Goliath, you can go furthermore into what faith does, or you can go into what faith looks like, right? So it's almost as if with the puppet show, you're almost laying the groundwork for what you're going to talk about later, right? And what that does is it reinforces the lesson. They're hearing the same thing 2 times, but in 2 different ways. Now, I have 3 children at home, and we homeschool, and I teach history to them. Now, I know something, is that my daughter, she learns things one way. My one son, he learns things another way. My 3-year-old, he's everywhere, and he's still learning he's learning history with me as well. He is able to say the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, right? And it's really cute when he says the word unalienable. But they learn in different ways, right? You can't expect a kid to learn one way and one way only. So sometimes a lecture style lesson is not going to get through, but a puppet show might. He's not on my hand right now, but a puppet show might. So you're going to teach the same truth, but in 2 different ways, in order to get it through to them. So your puppet show needs to be relevant to the lesson. And please, 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 please do not do a puppet show that doesn't incorporate any lesson at all, right? Don't do a puppet show just for the sake of having fun. If your kid wants to watch a puppet show just for the sake of having fun, they can go watch the Muppets, okay? Or they can, whatever other puppets there are out there. The Muppets are the only ones that are any good anyway. But if they want to watch puppets just for fun, they can do that anywhere else. At church, it's not for fun. There's a lesson involved. So, don't have a little concert with your, I remember I did this in high school when I was in a high school puppet ministry one year. Instead of using puppets to reinforce our lesson, we did a little concert with our puppets. And now that I look back, I think, well, what spiritual purpose did that serve? How did that help those kids on Sunday? Well, it didn't. So please, please, please have your puppet ministry have a lesson to it, but have that lesson reinforce the actual lesson that you're going to be doing later. And here's my final thought on effective puppet ministry. So number 1, engage your audience. Number 2, your puppet show should be relevant to your lesson. And then number 3, don't talk down to the kids. Now, there is a common problem when it comes to puppet ministry. And that common problem is talking to the children like they're a bunch of dummies. Now, kids are not dumb. Kids are smart, okay? And here's the problem that we have with puppet ministry is that this. Here's what we do in puppet ministry. Hello, boys and girls. How are you doing today? Stop. Kids are not dumb. All right. Don't treat kids like you're talking to a bunch of 2-year-olds. Okay. Now, okay. Here's what I'll get to. And this is actually a lesson that is important, not just in puppet ministry, but really children's ministry in general. Now, I firmly believe, and we'll talk about this in the future, I firmly believe that you should divide up children by age. I firmly believe that if you that you're going to have a very hard time having an effective children's ministry if you have a wide range of children in one class. It's very hard because a 6th grader's needs are not the same as a kindergartner's needs. There's just no way around that. So you need to divide them up. However, if you find that you're in a position where you have a wide range of ages, do not use puppets, and really don't use your lesson. Don't use anything talking to the younger ones specifically. the younger kids are going to follow the example of the older kids, right? So you want to engage with the older ones. If the older kids are engaged in your children's ministry, the younger kids will then follow suit. It's especially true with puppets. Why this is especially true with puppets is that you are going to have a hard enough time getting the older kids' attention with the puppets. Now, I say that. I believe you can if you do this effectively. But if you don't do it effectively, you're not going to reach the older kids. If you are going, "Hi, boys and girls, how are you doing today?" Your fifth graders are out. They're gone. They don't care a bit, right? But if you're using your puppets to engage with the older kids, the younger kids, they're already engaged because the little kindergartner is just, "A puppet. Wow." And the little kindergartner doesn't care what the puppet is actually saying. The little kid is just amazed that there's a puppet. Whereas the fifth grader is listening. So here's what I do when it comes to puppet ministry. I write my jokes in puppet ministry for adults to laugh at, right? And I'm not talking about dirty jokes. I'm not talking like, I won't even say names of things. That would be controversial. I'm not talking about dirty, adult-oriented jokes. I'm talking like jokes that an adult can understand and find humorous, and an older kid can understand and find humorous, right? Basically, what I do is when I write a puppet skit, I think about the older kids. I have the older kids in mind. And when I think an older kid would find funny, that's the kind of joke I use. I do not do fart jokes. I do not do burping jokes. I don't do lowbrow jokes like that. I don't do jokes that a kindergartner would find funny. I think about that fifth grade kid. What is the fifth grade kid going to find funny? Basically this. When you are writing a puppet skit, you need to punch up instead of punch down, right? You understand that phrase. You're not punching kids. Don't go punching kids. That's wrong. But when it comes to writing jokes, you want to reach the upper grades instead of the lower grades. The lower grades, you're going to get their attention anyway, whereas the higher grades, they actually care about the content of what is being said. So, in my VBS puppet skit, we talked about how Happy was going out into the jungle to find the missing jewel of Kanuwa. And that missing jewel, if the wrong person got a hold of it, it would be able to turn all the world into platypuses. And the way I played that off was I talked about how I used a Latin phrase for platypus instead of the actual word platypus, and I had no clue what a anatomus whatever actually was. The first time I did this VPS skit, I had a parrot puppet who was sarcastic. She was a native to a native of the jungle who hated tourists, and she would always be sarcastic and say mean things to the touristy people until the last day when she cried because she was going to miss us. I didn't have a second puppeteer for my second go-round of this, so what I did was, well, I got to rewrite this puppet skit, but I got to rewrite it without this puppet. So what I did was I just pretended that my one puppet was able to see the parrot, and I wasn't able to see the parrot, and I was like, well, who are you talking to? And anyway, the older kids found it funny. Always write jokes, always write your material for the older kids, not just in puppet ministry, but also when it comes to your lessons as well. And what I'll do is I will link I'll link one of one of my old puppet skits in the show notes. I don't write a whole lot of puppet skits anymore. I wrote a lot when I was younger on a website called puppetresources.com. I cannot vouch for how good my puppet skits were from back then. I was a high schooler. I was still just working on some of it, but I'll link some of my better ones. And here's what I'll do. If you ever need a puppet skit on a certain lesson, a certain spiritual thing, send me an email. I'll put my email here at the bottom, and for a small fee, I'll write a puppet skit for you. And I really mean small. I mean legitimately a small fee. Just so that I can be paid for my time. But I'll write a puppet skit for you, just so that you can kind of understand what this is supposed to look like, what it's supposed to sound like, and I guess that's all of that. And use puppets. Use puppet ministry. It can be very effective. It can be very helpful. All right. So, Brad, you need to say goodbye to everyone before we go. So, say bye to the people, Brad. Bye to the people. All right. And next week we will talk about some more things. Have a good week in the Lord. And hey, don't forget to like. Oh, how about we should have Brad say this? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and send a comment and tell everyone how handsome I am in the comments. That's right. Okay. And again, if you have any puppet ministry needs, be sure to send me an email. I would love to help you with getting your puppet ministry up and going. All right, that's it. Have a good week.